There's a version of Santorini that almost nobody sees. Not the white domes and blue rooftops you've scrolled past 1,000 times. Those are real, but they're only the surface. The actual island, the one that made ancient sailors believe the gods lived there, is a place built directly on top of a volcanic explosion, so violent it may have inspired the legend of Atlantis. You're not walking on quiet, peaceful ground when you visit. You're walking on top of one of the biggest natural disasters in human history. And somehow, out of that destruction, came the most photographed sunset on Earth. Tonight, we're going past the postcard, past the infinity pools and the Instagram lines. We're going into the black sand beaches nobody mentions. The villages carved into cliffs by people hiding from pirates centuries ago. A Bronze Age city frozen in volcanic ash, and vineyards growing grapes in a way you've genuinely never seen before. By the time this ends, you won't just want to visit Santorini. You'll understand why people who've been everywhere on Earth keep saying nothing else compares. The timeless beauty of Oya starts in Oya, right at the northern tip of the island, and here's the first thing that catches you off guard. It's not the view. It's the silence. Early morning, before the tour buses arrive, the narrow marble streets are almost empty, just the sound of your own footsteps and, somewhere below, waves hitting volcanic rock. The buildings here aren't just white for style. Centuries ago, during a cholera outbreak, the government ordered every home whitewashed with lime, because lime kills bacteria. The habit stuck. Now that same whitewash reflects the Aegean sun so intensely that by afternoon, the whole village seems to glow from the inside. Wander far enough off the main path and you'll find blue-domed chapels wedged between houses. Over 300 of them scattered across the island, most built by families as offerings after surviving a storm at sea. Push open an unlocked door and you might find fresh candles still burning, left by someone you'll never meet. The volcano that shaped Santorini, but that's only the beginning. Because Santorini isn't actually one island. It's the shattered rim of a volcano that erupted around 1600 BC with a force so catastrophic it likely wiped out the ancient Minoan civilization on Crete 60 miles away. Stand at the caldera's edge in Fira and look down. Really look. And you're staring into the collapsed heart of that explosion, now filled with seawater so deep and so blue it looks almost artificial. Boats crossing it look impossibly small. Somewhere beneath that water sits an underwater volcano that's still technically active, still steaming faintly near a spot called Near Kamini, where you can hike across cooled black lava fields and, if you're brave enough, swim in water warmed by hot springs bubbling up from below. Hidden villages and ancient traditions. Just when you think you've grasped the scale of what happened here, the island shows you the proof. On the southern tip near Akrotiri, archaeologists uncovered something that reads like fiction. An entire Bronze Age town, buried under volcanic ash so completely that walls, staircases, even furniture impressions survived for over 3,500 years. Walk through the covered excavation site today, past 2- and 3-story buildings still standing, and you're looking at streets that were bustling with life the exact moment the volcano erupted. Here's the part that gives people chills. Unlike Pompeii, no bodies have ever been found. Researchers believe the town's residents felt the warning signs, tremors, changes in the wells, and evacuated before the eruption, leaving behind an entire civilization frozen mid-motion, but somehow empty of people. Some archaeologists believe this exact story. A wealthy, advanced island civilization swallowed suddenly by the sea is what Plato was describing when he first wrote about Atlantis. Just when you think you've seen everything the caldera has to offer, the island pulls you somewhere completely unexpected. Head south to Pyrgos, the island's old capital, built in a spiral pattern specifically to confuse pirates who used to raid these shores. Climb to the top, past cats sleeping in doorways and grandmothers hanging laundry between stone walls. and you'll reach a Venetian fortress with views that rival Oia, minus the crowds. Locals here still make a dessert called melatinia, small cheese pastries flavored with mastic and cinnamon, a recipe passed down so specifically that some families won't share the exact ratio even with neighbors. This is the Santorini most tourists never taste. There's one thing about this island that surprises almost everyone who visits, and it's underground, quite literally. The volcanic soil here is so mineral-rich, and the wind so relentless that vines can't grow upright the way they do everywhere else in the world. So generations ago, farmers invented something called kulura, weaving each vine into a low basket shape that hugs the ground, protecting the grapes inside from wind and heat. Some of these vines are ungrafted and over 100 years old, having survived a root disease called phylloxera that wiped out most of Europe's vineyards in the 1800s, simply because the insect that causes it can't survive in volcanic ash. Taste the local Acertico wine here, and you're tasting something that literally cannot be replicated anywhere else on the planet, grown in soil that's part pumice, part ash, part history. Sit at a family-run winery in Megalochori as evening light hits the vines, and the owner might tell you, almost casually, that the grape variety in your glass predates the ancient Greeks who once sailed past this coast. Secret bays and unforgettable sunsets, there's a hidden corner below Oia that most people never bother finding, even though it's only a short walk down. It's called a moody bay, and getting there means descending over 200 stone steps carved into the cliffside, past mule trains still used to carry supplies the same way they have for generations. At the bottom, small tavernas sit almost at the waterline, close enough that you can hear waves slap against the volcanic rock while you eat fish pulled from that same water hours earlier. Local fishermen still dock their boats right beside the tables. Order the fresh catch here and watch the sky slowly change color as sunset approaches from below, rather than from the crowded viewpoints above. And you'll realize you've found the version of this view almost nobody photographs. What happens on this island every evening is almost impossible to describe until you've felt it yourself. As sunset approaches, something strange happens. Strangers stop talking. Restaurant staff quietly turn down the music. Entire crowds of people who don't know each other end up facing the same direction, phones half raised, just waiting. And then the sun drops behind the volcanic caldera, and for about 4 minutes, the whole sky turns shades of orange and pink that don't look like they belong to this planet. Locals treat sunset here almost as a religious event, and honestly, after experiencing it, you understand why. There's a reason couples fly here from across the world just to watch the sky do this one thing. Beyond the postcard beaches, the next part changes how you'll think about this island entirely. Away from the crowds of Oia, on the southern coast, lies Red Beach, where volcanic cliffs the color of rust plunge into water, so clear you can count pebbles 10 feet down. A short boat ride further sits Parissa, a black sand beach so hot by mid-afternoon that locals joke you can fry an egg on it. Swim out just past the shoreline and the water shifts from turquoise to a deep, almost impossible blue, cooled by underwater volcanic vents. Few tourists venture this far south, which means you might have an entire stretch of coastline with nothing but the sound of waves and distant goat bells drifting down from the hillside. So maybe it's not really about the sunset, or the blue domes, or even the wine grown in volcanic ash. Maybe it's about standing somewhere that survived catastrophe and turned it into something unforgettable. Somewhere that keeps rewarding the people willing to walk a little further than everyone else. If this journey inspired you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which destination you're adding to your bucket list.